All right, perfect. All right, guys, thanks for coming in. We got Justine Wong-Orantes. You're a two-time All-American at Nebraska, 2015 NCAA champion, and a current member on the U.S. national team. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Gia, thank you for putting this on. You reached out, you got her here, so now we all get to get better and learn a little bit. So my first question is from Gia. Can you tell us about your volleyball journey? I know we talked a little bit, but now for everyone here, your volleyball journey, how old when you started playing, and your position starting off.
Yeah. I started when I was 7 years old, and both my parents played volleyball at some point, and so I kind of grew up in a volleyball household, and they weren't really forcing me to play, but my dad at the time was coaching at Long Beach City College, and he was running a camp, and so I decided to tag along with him, and just on the side, picking up the ball, passing, and just kind of messing around with it. And I just started to go to more camps and clinics, just tagging along. Both my parents played in co-ed leagues, and so that's kind of when I started to really spark interest in the sport and began to pepper and really understand what the game was about. And so at 8 years old, I had entered club for Mizuno Long Beach and played there for 10 years until I went on to Nebraska. And so when I was playing club, I actually started setting, and that was my real first position. And I set basically all through club. It wasn't until my senior year that I had transitioned into the Libero position. And I just loved it. I loved setting and kind of directing traffic and leading in that way. And so when I really started to, learn about college volleyball and really was getting interested in, I was very passionate about volleyball. And so I really wanted to continue playing in college. And so I think just kind of a light bulb went on in my head that if I wanted to go and play at a very high college, that I would probably have to go and transition to the Libero position. And I was getting looks at for setting, but it was either running a 6-2 or maybe just playing back row. And so I wanted to just challenge myself to, go to a really good college and be able to be a starter and make an impact on that team. And so my coach had transitioned me my senior year, and I solely committed to playing that position. And actually back up, my junior year, we had switched me to the Libero, and Nebraska had seen me play in the Junior Olympics, that Junior Nationals that summer, and they were actually opening up a scholarship for my class 2013. And at that time, that ruling was that once you're about to be a senior, you can go and talk to the coaches. And so I got to talk to Dan Meskey, who now coaches for the University of Louisville. And he was the one that kind of started my recruiting process, and we scheduled an official visit. And I went, and I loved it there. I mean, the facilities were great. I was kind of blown away with just the overall support that the Nebraska university had for all of their athletes. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me to go ahead and choose Nebraska. And I mean, I had a great time there, great experience on the court and off the court.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things I'm really curious about. I'm sure some of the other kids are as well. Tell us about your transition. You said you played setter up until your senior year, and then how did you make that switch to Libero so quick to compete at a high level and then get recruited? If you would have gone from outside the Libero, I would have said, hey, it's probably an easier transition. But as a setter, I don't think you got many passing reps. So tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, that was just a huge kind of doubt in my mind as if I could do it or not. And like you said, I didn't have as many reps. And so I felt like I was always trying to play catch up. But the one thing that kind of, I guess, supported me and allowed me to believe that maybe I could do it was just playing tons of beach volleyball. Growing up, I played with Sarah Hughes, who's now on the USA side of the beach game, and we played basically every summer for like 8-9 years growing up. And so I developed that part of my game on the beach. And so it was nowhere near like what other liberos had in their pocket, but I think for that many years of experience, it kind of gave me some sort of boost that I could do it, and just extra reps and getting in the gym as much as I could to try to make up for all those loss of repetitions. But yeah, I mean, once I got to Nebraska, I was pretty much I felt like starting from square one, just learning to play volleyball again. And so we had come in with 8 freshmen, and so it was kind of a brand new team. There were only 3 seniors, and actually 1 was hurt, so 2 that could actually play. And so it was kind of like everyone was able to earn their positions from there. And so I felt like we were even. And so I worked hard for my spot and ended up starting as a freshman.
Is there any point in that process did you realize like, hey, maybe I don't know, maybe I should go back to setting? Did it get difficult during that, or was it smooth?
Yeah, I remember my freshman year, there was one match specifically. We played against Wisconsin, and I was just getting served and lit up. Like, I could not pass. I actually got hit out of the passing formation at one point, and I was just like, I could feel like just my lungs caving in, and just like my breathing started to, speed up, and like all of these things were going through my head. And then finally we actually got through it. We went to 5 that match, and we somehow pulled it off. But I had watched film that next week, and just me and the defensive coach were watching film and kind of dissecting what was happening, and just what was going through the match and what was going through my head. And I just remember going into practice that day or that week, and just kind of going back to the basics, and just really focusing on like maybe what I was doing wrong in the match, and taking it like one at a time. But my freshman year, we ended up going to the Sweet 16, and then we lost from there. But my sophomore year, I started to pick up some confidence, and worked really hard in the off season. And we were still a very young team, so I think in that year, like my coach actually voted for me to be captain. And so just because I had 1 year under my belt from starting, and it was pretty much the same team, very new and very young. And so I think he challenged me to be put in a leadership role that I wasn't so comfortable being in, just because I was a sophomore and I'm still kind of adjusting to this new position. But I think that was probably the best thing for me to do, just to learn and see how I can lead in a new position.
That's awesome. I like, it's a very vulnerable story that you shared with us, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
You talked about Nebraska. Nebraska is one of the few, I know they have some minor league teams, pro teams, but they don't really have some major league. Really all the university sports are the biggest deal there. What's it like playing in that environment to begin with?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. I mean, obviously I'm pretty biased, but I think it's the best arena for volleyball in the world or in the country. And so getting to play there is just a blessing. And kind of after I was done with my career and getting to go back and watch it for myself in the stands is just like so exhilarating, because you don't even realize like how much the crowd has an effect, especially when we would get into playoff time and we would host, and like there are some tight moments where like the fans just go crazy, and you can just feel that on the court, and it just gives us so much energy and adrenaline and so much fun getting to compete in that type of atmosphere. And so yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's awesome.
And then I've heard Coach John Cook does a great job with team culture. How does he get you guys to buy in? And can you tell us a little bit, like, what is his niche? What is his bread and butter when he does that?
Yeah. So he really harps on serve and pass. That's one thing we did every day. We would have servers versus passers to end practice with some sort of competition. And we had that. And then he also really harped on blocking defense. And so those two things we worked on every single day, whether it was like a competition setting or maybe it was just, just to practice and get better. But he really, really harped on those two things in our gym. And I think we really took pride in those things. And just really knowing the importance of those, especially in game time moments. But I think he just really pushed us. I mean, we have this drill called trash can drill, and it's basically you're playing 10-10. So your goal is to get to 5, and it's all the outside hitters do it. And you have 3 blockers that are blocking against you. And then he would put actually 4 defenders in the back row. And so you're having to score off of these gigantic, because we had some grad assistants, so boys would help us in our practice, and so they're getting up there, and so we're having to really grind through it. And like the side that is attacking, we're trying our best to cover and give our hitter a second chance. But I think it was just those types of drills that really prepared us for those big time moments in games, and really just pushing ourselves to really grind it out.
So how did he treat mistakes then in the gym? Were they welcomed? Were they, how were they handled?
Yeah, I think it was welcome, but it was also, learning from them. And it was kind of implemented in those types of drills. Like, okay, if you're losing in trash can drill, then you're just going to have to do it again. So it was really just trying to get out of it and get out of it together as a team. And so we really, had to come together in those moments so that we can get our teammate out of it. Because the reason why it was called trash can drill is because at one point, I think a few years back, like someone actually had to go during the drill to go throw up in the trash can. And so, we were doing everything that we can to pull our teammates out of that drill.
I might have to steal that one. How did you get your opportunity to practice or compete in the USA gym? Was it a phone call? Was it a tryout? Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, so after my senior year, all the All-Americans at the All-American banquet and at the Final Four would have a meeting with Karch, and he would basically tell us, you're kind of in our radar by being an All-American, and just we've been watching you through your whole collegiate career. And so after I was done in December of my senior year, I had got a call from him saying that we would like to invite you to our gym. And so that following summer in May, I had gone out there back to California, which is where I'm from. And so I had lived at home for a little bit, and then started training with them in May.
Got it. And then what's the competition like for that libero position? I know the U.S. has some pretty solid liberos. What's it like to compete with some veteran players, you being, younger coming in?
Yeah. Well, actually, so Kayla Banworth was the former libero of the 2016 Olympics, and she retired and went on to coach. And so coming into this new quad, we've had 2 other liberos that were basically, starting from scratch, and we all are trying to earn that position. And so it really is up for grabs with all of us. And so it's cool. And it's also, we got to be really diligent and hardworking. I mean, we all have kind of a target on our backs because we're all kind of vying for that spot.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Kayla Banworth. I know she's from Nebraska, and, you talk to some coaches, they see her as the best technical passer in the world. So those are some pretty big shoes to fill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you handle conflict with the teammate?
I think that can be very hard, especially with my personality. I don't do well with conflict, and I'm a very happy, just a very encouraging player. And so when we do have to have those times and those moments, I think it's very important to kind of have, that leadership council, or maybe it's the captains of your team, to kind of go with you, because they're basically the ones that are being looked up to and kind of respect on that team. And so I think it's important to have them maybe as a mediator, or I don't know, maybe it's just kind of explaining to them what has happened. If you don't feel comfortable, doing it one-on-one. But of course, if you have that personality, and if you're all for it, then I would definitely do it one-on-one, just because I think face-to-face, person to person is awesome to kind of dissect those conflicts.
Do you see more of that, in your college team, or that kind of went away in the USA gym? Or do you see it more, do you still see player conflict at that highest level?
Not so much in the USA gym. There were a few conflicts that we would have in the Nebraska gym. I think once you kind of get to that professional level, you kind of have a better understanding of what is the common goal, what is our mission, and you obviously have higher standards too. I mean, I'm playing with, Olympians, like Jordan Larson's going for her third Olympics right now. And so you have those standards that you kind of put on yourself, and they have those standards that they're putting on you as well.
Gotcha. When was the idea of a growth mindset introduced to you, and what does that mean to you?
Actually, Karch talks about that a lot, and that I've always heard of it in my college days, but I never really kind of dove into it until I got to the USA gym, and just hearing about it from Karch and kind of him preaching it. And I think it is amazing to kind of have that mindset, because then I feel like you're always trying to get better as kind of a person and a player, and seeing what having an open mindset can do for you, and just kind of up your game and really learn from other people. And I think in the USA gym, there's just so much that you can learn from every player, just because they come from different backgrounds, different clubs, or maybe different coaching styles. And so I think just having that growth and open mindset can only better your game.
Yeah, I agree. And Karch does a great job. Quick story: I was in the USA gym one time, and I think Karch is the best player to ever play the game. And he asked me, he says, "Hey, what did you see?" So, for me, I was like, "Hey, you're Karch Karai. I don't, what does that matter?" But
Yeah.
He does a great job modeling, what it means to have a growth mindset. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Last question from me, and then we'll kind of open up to some Q&A from the girls.
Okay.
We've had a lot of athletes actually come on. We've been very fortunate. And the question I like to ask them, pressure, is there a point in the game for you that the nerves go away and you're just playing free?
Yeah, I think for me, personally, it's just when I can put all the attention on my teammates and what I can do for them, I play the best that I can play. Because when I go internal and when I'm thinking about myself, I'm thinking about that bad pass 10 points ago. Like, I only, kind of reflect on myself and go internal, and then it tends to add up in the errors. I'm just thinking about it and the past mistake or whatever it is, and it kind of influences that new play that's about to come. And so I think when I can put it on everyone else and just make sure that I'm doing what I can do for my teammates, then I think that's when it goes well and when my performance does better.
Yeah. Oh, one more question, actually. I lied. Volleyball, like technique-wise, is there some significant change that was told to you, and then, hey, that's the way you pass now? That, what's the biggest change technically that you made that you've seen the biggest improvement as a passer?
Yeah, I mean, in college, Coach Cook would talk about angles too, but I think it's even kind of went up in that degree when I got to the national team, and that's solely what we focus on, is just off our midline and really getting those angles out. And so I think, I'm still learning and still trying to, perfect that. And so I think just really, really like kind of Tama actually uses the word tilt And so that's kind of like a simple reminder for myself to tilt and really aim that platform to the setter.
Awesome. So, all right. I think, let me see. We're going to do Q&A. We have a lot of kids in here. Jade. What was the first? Kenji? No, actually, we have too many kids in here to shuffle through them. So I'm going to go ahead and read out the question. First question is from Jade. I actually like this question. She said, getting injuries, did that ever affect your mindset as a player?
So I was fortunate enough to only have one like kind of major injury, and I wouldn't even call it major because I didn't have to have surgery for it. But my junior year at Nebraska, I had dove for a ball and hit my knee pretty good. And so it was actually, the term was like a patella partial tear. And so I had to sit out 2 matches. And that was like the longest 2 matches, 2 weeks that had ever gone by in my career, just because I had never had that feeling of having to sit out, and because I was injured. And so that was a new role that I had to play, just because I was a starter, and so it kind of, messed up some of the dynamics. And one of our freshman DS had to come and fulfill that spot, and so she was a little nervous, and so I kind of had to talk her through it and just make sure that I was giving her confidence in everything that she could, that she knows that she can do it. I mean, she was a very steady substitution in the back row, so she was by all means capable of fulfilling that position. So yeah, I was just kind of instilling that confidence and making sure like the whole team knew that she was there to play, and that she would have their back and they would have her back.
And next question is from Kai. Kai asked, have you always known that you wanted to play for the national team? Does playing ever negatively affect the other aspects of your life?
Yeah, so growing up, I was like a huge gym rat. I always wanted to be in the gym, pepper with anyone that wanted to pepper with me. And so I always had dream of going to the Olympics and representing USA, and just kind of playing as long as I can. And I think just growing up and getting older and actually reaching the spot, I mean, I'm super thankful, and like at times it is hard because you have to balance all of these other things of your life. And this past season, I actually had the opportunity to go play in Germany for my first professional season. And that's kind of when it hit me that, there's things to balance outside of volleyball. And I was fortunate that my boyfriend had come with me to Germany. And so we would have, I had that company. And so we kind of like experienced a whole new culture together. And that was awesome to experience that with him, and just have someone, because I know it can be very lonely at times when you're playing overseas. But I don't think it should discourage anyone, because I mean, you get to see the world and get to play volleyball at the same time. I got to go to Paris and London for Christmas time, so that was awesome. And I mean, I would encourage everyone to just try it at least once.
And then Sarah Dunham, I'm actually going to unmute you. You can read your question.
Okay. My question was, how do you make sure to balance your education and volleyball life? And is there one that you prioritize over the other?
So now I'm not in school. So I kind of have one less thing to worry about, I guess. But yeah, in college, it was, it's a big juggle of like balancing like volleyball, and then you have your academics, and then you have your social life and your friends. And so I think Nebraska, and I'm sure tons of other schools, do a really good job of providing resources. We had like academic advisors, tutors, to really keep on top of that stuff and just make sure that you're not falling behind in classes. And we would have at the beginning of each semester have this letter that we would turn in to our professors that would say like, we potentially might miss some of these class dates due to volleyball travel. And so a lot of them, most of them were pretty understandable and just providing the homework or maybe the lectures beforehand and making sure that you're on top of that. But yeah, I think it's just super important to really, I mean, now I do it and I wish I would have done it before, but like having like a journal or a planner to really make sure that you're like writing down things and kind of making checklists and to-do lists so that you know like how to prioritize things.
All right, Leilani. Leilani, go ahead, ask your question.
Hi. So many of our players have parents who are coaches or who have played volleyball. What advice do you have for parents and players in that relationship, especially because you have parents who are coaches from such a young age?
Right, yeah. I would encourage those parents to, I mean, the best thing you can do is support them. And I can't thank my mom and dad enough for providing me that support. And just, I know there are long days where, you know, they're driving me to and from practice or tournaments and things like that. But I never really felt pressure or just forced to continue volleyball. It just kind of became a passion for me on my own. And I think that created such a strong bond between my mom and I, especially because, I mean, she loves volleyball and couldn't watch it probably every day. But I think just knowing that and knowing that she has supported me and just really allowed me to kind of flourish and do things on my own.
All right, and Vanya.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, was there ever pressure playing for a top school like Nebraska? And if there was, how did you cope with that pressure?
Yeah, I think, you know, not only playing for Nebraska, I think the whole team kind of feels pressure of like going to the Final Four, winning a national championship. And so we kind of all felt that pressure together. But for me, I think specifically it was just doing well in my Libero spot, you know, to really prove to everyone and to myself especially that I can do this. And so I think that was probably the biggest amount of pressure that I felt, is just, can I do this, and can I actually be great at this? And so you know, my teammates and my coaches had all the belief in me, and so that really helped me throughout my career. And yeah, I mean, I can't thank them enough.
Thank you.
Of course.
And Gia.
Hi, sorry, my camera's not working, but I had a question. Was there ever a moment where you actually wanted to quit playing? And if so, how were you able to gain a stronger, more confident mindset to continue?
You know what? There actually was. It was actually a few years ago, 2017. I did not go overseas, and I actually had an offer to go overseas, and I didn't know really the importance of it and just what it would do for my volleyball career and kind of develop me as a player, especially because that transition from college to professional, there's a ball change in playing with the Mikasa ball, and so it's different in the way it moves for serve receive at least. And so I just kind of wish that going back I would have accepted that offer to go play, but it was kind of a low point just because I stayed home and trained with Karch that winter / fall of 2017, and it was just me. It was me and Karch and a couple of others, but it just became really redundant and kind of boring. You know, it's just 3, maybe 4 girls it was, but with Karch and a couple of like practice players. But, you know, it wasn't that team aspect and that team feeling of getting to play 6-on-6 or building connections with your teammates. And so I really missed out on that part. and I didn't realize how much of effect it would have on me. And so I really questioned if I wanted to continue playing. And and so I mean, obviously continue to play, and I'm so thankful that I kind of went through that rough time, because it made me just really stand in like why I play volleyball, and really kind of question like, do I really want to continue this, and who am I doing this for? What am I doing this for? And so yeah, I'm super thankful for that period of time that I went through.
We're gonna go to Sienna.
Hi. So I have like two questions. Is the volleyball alumni relationship strong in Nebraska? Like, do you keep in touch regularly with the coaches and players?
You know, I wish I would keep in contact more. I don't want to make an excuse that it's difficult with my schedule, but I mean, especially now in this time, it's the time to do that. But I do keep in contact with some of my teammates, and we just had a Zoom call like a couple of weeks ago to kind of see how everyone was doing. But I would love to, you know, keep in contact with Coach Cook a little bit more.
Yeah. And then my second question is, when you played other programs, in your mind, what set Nebraska apart, like regarding the interaction of coaches and players, as well as system?
Yeah. I mean, I think going back to what I said earlier, the amount of support that they had for the athletes was just, you know, you can't really put it in words, because they made you feel at home. And I think that's the one thing that kind of kept me there and like made me feel as comfortable as I did, being so far away from my home in California. There wasn't really ever, I mean, my freshman year, I had a few times where I was homesick, but the rest of my career, like I felt pretty at home. And I think that kind of made my teammates and the coaching staff and everyone else that I came in contact with at Nebraska like so special, because like they were capable of making me feel so at home.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And if anybody has any questions, go ahead, type them in. Let's, you know, if you're curious, go ahead. And then Gia, do you have another question?
Yeah, I have like a question just about like club and how that recruiting process went initially for you, like going into your last years of club and figuring out how, like what kind of college you wanted to go to, if you were dedicated to go, and things like that.
Yeah. So my recruiting process was pretty short and quick. I didn't really get any offers until like my junior year, and then going into my senior year with Nebraska. It was pretty much like a 2-3 week commitment. I took a visit there, and like 1 week later I committed, and that was kind of just because like one, I felt so comfortable and at home there, and two, just like the support, and three, really like how they love their college sports. I mean, earlier we had mentioned that there's nothing really out there besides the college sports, and so I think like with the emphasis of that, I felt at home, because growing up in a big volleyball household, I've always like, you know, was surrounded by that. And so when I had seen like a picture of the Devaney Center and how it held 8,000 fans, and I was like, I want to play in that arena. And so yeah, I mean, it was so, I mean, I was so lucky, and just how they had opened a spot up, and a transfer had left, and so that created a scholarship for me. And so I was lucky in that sense. But I mean, I would just encourage everyone that's listening just to go on as many visits, camps, clinics, whatever. Do your research on the schools, or you know, the schools that you're potentially curious about or interested in and just to make sure. You know, one thing that Nebraska was also pretty good at is just their academics, and they had the major that I wanted. So I would also advise you guys to kind of research that, and like, okay, if I am really happy with volleyball? Am I also happy with the academics and what they kind of have to offer from that perspective?
And then, sorry, go ahead, Gia.
Just wanted to say thank you for your answer.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm sure some of our players are thinking this too. Did you get nervous seeing teammates on your club team start to commit before you? And how was that like?
Yeah. Yeah, there were a few girls that committed pretty early and before me. And so it was kind of like that anxious feeling of, okay, I need to find a school for me. Like, am I going to go anywhere, And so, yeah, I was scared. But I mean, I think in the back of my mind, like all the hard work and all the hours of training that I had put, like I knew something that would have to, maybe come up, but I mean, no way, like I would have imagined that Nebraska would have been at the door, and so I'm like super thankful and grateful that that opportunity came up.
And let's go to MIAAA. I mean, Mia, you got a question.
Are there any mental tricks that you can share when you're going through a tough time in a game?
Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of learned these like just in the last couple of years is just focusing on my breath, and there's always that high pressure situation that your heartbeat's going to start racing and maybe you're getting sweaty palms, and I think it just goes back to like your breath and really taking the time to breathe and you're kind of like hitting a reset button in your brain. And I've actually been using that, and just especially in serve receive, right? Like it's kind of you have that all of that time that you're kind of thinking about, and so one thing that I've also been trying to practice is positive self-talk and making sure that I'm having positive thoughts in my head and not negative thoughts. And so I think that kind of correlates. If you're having a negative thought, most times you're probably gonna either shank it or maybe it's not as good of a pass as you would like it to be. And so if you can kind of train your mind and really practice those positive self-talk and positive thoughts.
And Justine, you said you did a little bit of coaching. I know you've been playing for your whole life. If you were teaching a new passer how to pass, what are you telling him?
I think, especially when you're younger, I think footwork is very important, and just trying to get behind the ball as much as you can. I think once you get older and the game becomes a little bit faster, servers are getting a little bit tougher, and so I think that's when I was introduced to the off midline and angle passing, and so I think that's when you kind of introduce that idea, and just really getting your platform out there. And I think spacing is a huge key to passing, and having great space between your platform and your stomach. And so with all of that, with footwork, spacing, and then also your angles, right? You're kind of wherever you are on the court is going to be a different angle to the setter. And so I think that's important to kind of train your shoulders and just your platform to have all of those angles.
Then what drills are you running them through?
So what I would do with my 17s last year at Mizuno, we would actually have the passers. So I would have 2 targets on each side of the pin just for kind of like a exaggeration with the angles. And so they would be in zone 6, middle back, and they're just practicing their angles from the left shoulder to the right, and they're trying to hit those targets, those baskets as many times as they can. And me as a server on the other side, I'm varying where I'm serving from so they can practice those angles coming from different service areas.
Now you mentioned, seeing the server come from a different spot. Is that passer making the biggest change, or are they just going to turn and face? What's different for them?
Yeah, I think just their hips towards the server is the only thing that I do as a passer is just really making sure that I'm facing the server.
All right, and then last question comes from Trent. He asks, how does a pregame and postgame stretch recovery, and how do you, oh, sorry, let me read this. What is your pregame and postgame stretch, and how important do you think that is to a long career?
You know, maybe 5 years ago, I would have laughed that off and brushed it off, but it's super important, especially if you want to have a long career and play, you know, as long as you can. I think that's important to take time. I mean, especially a volleyball athlete, like maybe not my position, but you know, all those hitters and setters, you're taking so much impact on your body with jumping and blocking and things like that. And so I think it's important to listen to your body and just really take, like, all you need is maybe 5 minutes to stretch and cool down, and making sure that you're kind of alleviating your muscles to recover, and so that you can perform as best you can, like the next day, the next week, or so on.
Awesome. All right, Sienna, actually, I like your question, so we're going to make sure that gets said, and we'll end there. Go ahead, Sienna.
Okay. Hi. Can you give us any tips on what Nebraska looks for in recruits, both on and off the court?
Yeah. So I would start with on the court first. I think it's super important to really be try to train all the skills. I know at least like the past few years that I've been watching college volleyball, I think we're just getting really in that generation where it's, you know, very skill specific, and, you know, only middles can play front row, or only outside hitters can, you know, play front row, and they have to be taken out in the back row. I think we need to get to a point where, you know, we're going back to the 6 rotations and everyone can play everything. And so I think for Nebraska, like, we have a pretty good, you know, sense of ball control. And I mean, Coach Cook harps on that every day, you know, serve and pass, blocking, defense. And so I think if you can really improve your ball control skills and kind of learn all the aspects of the game, like, you're that much better of a player, and like, schools are going to be so much more interested in you. But as far as off the court, and I guess it kind of pertains to on the court too, but just being coachable and, you know, making good decisions. And I think your coach had mentioned growth mindset as well. And so being open, you know, being open to maybe a position change, or being open to be a leader, maybe that's on or off the court, you know, really initiating things with, I mean, for me, like, as a sophomore, I was kind of put in a position to lead, and I wasn't very comfortable in that. But I think if you have that growth mindset and, you know, set your mind to it, I think that could be a really good challenge and a really good opportunity to kind of gain respect for your teammates.
Alrighty, thank you, Justine. Is there anything you want to leave us with? And you know, thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say, first off, thank you guys so much for putting this together, and for so many of you guys joining this call. But I would just, you know, encourage you guys to keep staying at home, but also try to stay as active as you can. I know for me, I'm getting a little stir crazy as well, but I'm trying to do things at home, working out, and just really kind of activating my brain. And one thing that I've kind of done is make a checklist. And so maybe it's 2 or 3 things that you have to accomplish for that day, and just try to get it done so that you kind of have that sense of accomplishment for one day.
Alrighty, thank you. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for jumping in. There's some great questions from everybody.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for having me.